In this episode, we will tell you about the tragic air crashes, which were caused by human error and technical problems. In the first case, a pilot with a serious illness, which was hidden from the airline, took control and caused a disaster. In the second case, a faulty light on the instrument panel distracted the crew, which led to a disaster that could have been avoided. Crashes do not just happen, and there is a human factor in everything. Ridiculous mistakes and inattention, this is the main reason. But what, when a pilot with a serious illness sits at the controls and simply forgets how to fly an airplane? This story happened on June 18, 1972. The aircraft Hawker Siddeley 121 Trident, British European Airways, was performing a scheduled flight from London to Brussels. There were 112 passengers and 6 crew members on board the aircraft. At 16:08 the airliner began its takeoff run on the runway. The takeoff was normal. At 42 seconds, the front landing gear was raised, and 2 seconds later, at a speed of 268 km per hour, the aircraft took off from the runway. At 63 seconds, at an altitude of 108 meters above the runway level and at a speed of 315 km per hour, the autopilot was turned on. At 83 seconds, the captain reported to the dispatcher that takeoff had been completed, to which he received instructions to switch to communication with the control center. London Control. The crew began to perform the procedure for reducing engine noise. Control was carried out by the captain, who instructed the second pilot to fully retract the flaps and move the engine levers to reduce power. The captain reported to the dispatcher about the altitude of 1,500 meters, to which the dispatcher gave the order to climb to 1,830 meters. At 114 seconds, the aircraft speed was 300 km per hour, and the altitude was 540 meters, when, for an unknown reason, the slat retraction lever was moved. Since the aircraft speed at that moment was below the minimum set for the selected flaps, the control column began to shake after a couple of seconds to warn the crew about the danger of stalling. And another second later, the autopilot turned off. The crew did not react to the shaking of the control column, so the safety system automatically lowered the nose to increase the forward speed, but the commander raised the nose again to continue climbing, thereby not bringing the airliner out of the stall. At 124 seconds, the control columns deflected a second time, and then a third, after which a second later the stall warning system was simply turned off. While continuing to maintain a positive pitch angle, due to the deflection of the control column towards itself, the pitch angle quickly increased, and the forward speed dropped sharply to 86 km/h. The airliner went into a deep stall and rushed towards the ground. 17 seconds later, at 16:11, the airliner crashed flat into a clearing on the outskirts with a high vertical speed. Stains, near the highway, and completely destroyed. There was no fire. All 118 people on board died. At that time, this disaster was the largest in Great Britain. The investigation of the causes of the disaster was carried out by the British Air Accidents Investigation Branch. Investigators quickly established the causes of the disaster: the aircraft entering a deep stall mode, caused by the retraction of the slats at too low an airspeed, as well as incorrect actions of the crew. It was not possible to establish the direct culprit who made the decision to retract the slats. Flight 548 Commander Stanley suffered from severe atherosclerosis and could have died even before he was appointed commander of this flight. After the disaster on all Hawker Siddeley Trident, the slat and flap controls were combined, and their release and retraction were taken under automatic control. Medical examinations of flight personnel became more scrupulous, and veteran pilots were included in the risk group and began to undergo examination for atherosclerosis. The second incident occurred on December 29, 1972. The Lockheed L-10113851 TriStar airliner of Eastern Airlines crashed in the Everglades near Miami, flight EL-401. The cause of the crash was terribly absurd: a burnt-out indicator light for the front landing gear extension. On December 29, 1972, a Lockheed L-1011 TriStar airliner operated by Eastern Airlines made a domestic flight en route New York, Miami. There were 163 passengers and 13 crew members on board. At 21:20, the plane safely took off from New York. The flight was proceeding normally, and already at 23:34, when approaching Miami Airport, the indicator light of the front landing gear did not light up when releasing the landing gear. The crew aborted the landing approach and, at the command of the air traffic controller, took an altitude of 2,000 feet, heading to the holding area. The autopilot was engaged in altitude hold mode. In fact, the front landing gear was released normally, and its indicator light simply burned out. On Western Airlines, this was not the first such incident. When the indicator light did not light up, all three pilots began to remove the light bulb from the control panel and check it. During this procedure, the aircraft commander touched the control column quite hard, which caused the autopilot to disengage. The plane began to descend, but the removal of the light bulb from the control panel in flight distracted everyone so much that no one in the office noticed that the autopilot was disengaged and the plane was slowly descending. The flight engineer and the chief flight engineer took turns descending into the aircraft's bay to see if the landing gear had been released, but neither of them could see anything. Only at the last moment did the second pilot ask, "We're still at 2,000 feet, right?" The aircraft commander shouted what was happening and pulled the control column back, but it was too late. At 23:42, the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar crashed into the Everglades swamp, 30 kilometers from Miami International Airport, at a speed of 306 kilometers per hour and broke into several pieces. Aviation fuel spilled out of the tanks. At the time of the crash, there were two frog catchers, Raymond Dixon and Robert Mark, who witnessed the crash and helped rescue survivors. It was well past midnight on December 30th, and the rescue operation was fully organized. 101 people died in the crash, including all three pilots. The National Transportation Safety Board began investigating the causes of the crash. The final report of the investigation was published on June 14, 1973. According to the report, the cause was that the crew was carried away by the problem of the front landing gear extension indicator light not working and did not notice that the plane was losing altitude, due to the fact that the aircraft commander hit the control column hard, which led to the autopilot disengaging and the plane deviating from its course. What do you think about this story? Write your opinion in the comments.